Congressional Republicans are scrambling this week to try and finally hammer out the details of the big, beautiful reconciliation bill that Donald Trump has staked part of the success of his trade war on, and also his legacy. The Trump tax cuts being made permanent would be a significant campaign promise coming to fruition, but also is seen by the president and his allies as a necessary sort of counterweight to that 10% global tariff at the very least, and whatever reciprocal tariffs may be hammered out in the days and months ahead. They're hoping to use it as something of an industrial policy to attempt to juice the market and get some companies reshoring to the United States. We will see, but the House Ways and Means Committee literally, I think it was 18 hours. They just ended like an hour before we're taping this right now on Wednesday morning. They had a marathon session marking up the bill throughout the evening and last night. And we have video here actually already of this bill getting protested in the Rayburn House office building yesterday. You can see on your screen, this is, someone sarcastically said, like boomer January 6th, although the original January 6th was kind of boomer January 6th. Medicaid cuts, potential Medicaid cuts in the bill. So they were trying to get into the hearing and were being
I saw the right calling it an insurrection.
Yes, an insurrection. We have a motorized scooter insurrection
The Republic is secure from that insurrection attempt. We should make sure the public is aware.
Yes, everything is okay. And they were able to work till, what, like 8 in the morning, continuing.
They couldn't leave because of the terrorists outside the...
It would have been too hard. But, you know, this is a really interesting bill because with reconciliation bills, obviously you end up with these fascinating negotiation processes, and they become, you know, the smoke-filled backroom deals, and we're just seeing the early stages of that playing out now, Ryan. We're seeing kind of what some of the pieces might be, but Speaker Mike Johnson has a long way to go. Obviously, Senate Majority Leader John Thune has a long way to go, but Johnson particularly is in a very difficult position. He has a razor-thin margin in the House of Representatives, and already his conference is divided deeply, not just over things like SALT, which we'll get to, the state and local tax deduction, which we'll get to in a minute, but also just spending in general. So I want to start with one of the more interesting ideas, this is from the Senate side, that Senator Ted Cruz has come up with for the bill. We're going to go ahead and roll D1. This is the MAGA baby investment idea from Senator Cruz.
The idea is simple. Which is that we're going to create an investment account for every newborn child in America at birth. And that investment account, the federal government will seed with $1,000, but that account can receive every year up to $5,000 in contributions from friends and family members and from employers. And those contributions grow on a tax-deferred basis, and they can take it out after they turn 18. What it does is it takes every child in America and it gives them, number one, the miracle of compound growth, the ability to accumulate wealth, which is transformational. But number two, it makes them stakeholders. It gives them a stake in the American free enterprise system. And you asked how much they can save. If you have a baby that is born this year that starts with the initial $1,000 seed contribution over the next 18 years, if $5,000 a year is contributed at 7% growth, by the time they're 18, they have $170,000 in this account. By the time they're 35, they have $700,000 in the account.
Ryan, I actually think this is a brilliant idea. I'm curious what you make of it. I think the estimate is there's like 3.6 million babies born in the United States per year, roughly, this is according to the Census Bureau. So compared to other things we spend ridiculous amounts of money on, it's relatively cheap to seed an account with $1,000 per baby. This is in the bill. It is somewhat hilariously called like the Money Account for Growth and Advancement, so MAGA account, which is an appeal obviously to Donald Trump. I think this could be a very interesting negotiating chip, maybe with the SALT conference.
Yeah, I mean,
sure. If you take the money from the babies,
I'm not against it. Free money for babies, fine. Like having if people think that that's going to change the calculation on whether to have a baby, when it comes to like just your first 5 minutes in the hospital is going to cost you more than that.
Yeah.
Aside from all the other costs associated with having a baby, but if you're going to try to help kids out, help parents out, go for it. Yeah, have fun.
Well, I think it would be a fun negotiating chip with the SALT guys. You're like, oh, you want your state and local tax deduction tripled? Okay, well, you're going to have to get rid of the babies to like.
I think they'll be fine with that.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, they would be fine with it.
They'll get rid of the babies.
They absolutely would be fine with it, and sets up an interesting, one of those conversations about. Listen, why should those of us who aren't having children subsidize the people who are having children, which could become a pretty interesting debate as well.
Which, yeah, I'd be happy to have. Like, what are you going to do when you're old? Like, you want to live in a society, but you don't want children? Like, get out of here. Like it's not how it works.
Or children with the means to, like, have productive lives. Yeah.
Yeah, and also, like, just productivity in general. Like, like, everything you do requires people to help you do it. And, you know, if somebody isn't raising those children into people, how you just going to do everything yourself, even when you're 90? Like, get out of here. That's not serious. Now, the broad structures here, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. That the Trump initially said that he might like go with some slightly higher taxes on the rich, and then he had this bizarre truth post where he says, you know, I'm kind of for it, but I can see arguments against it, so you guys do what you want. And House Republicans are like, okay, cool, then we are definitely cutting taxes on the rich.
Yeah, exactly.
If it's up to us, more tax breaks for the rich. And then we have to break Trump's other promise, which is I'm definitely not going to cut Medicaid. And so in order to pay for the tax cuts for the rich, you have to then cut a bunch of Medicaid. And then to say, well, we're going to give $1,000 to every baby.
Yep.
While cutting $800 billion or whatever from Medicaid is kind of insulting to people's intelligence, I would think.
Right. So to be clear, the baby part of that is actually in the bill. And the bill was, it passed out of the committee just again like an hour ago after, I think, 18 hours of deliberation on a 26 to 19 vote. So that's a party line vote. It's going to the House Budget Committee. Now it's about a 400-page bill, and there's all kinds of stuff being crammed into it, not just the baby stuff, but also, Ryan, something that you're paying very close attention to, the nonprofit status revocability from the Treasury Department. Many people paying close attention to that one. By the way, not just left-leaning nonprofits, but potentially conservative nonprofits who could end up getting absolutely wrecked should a Democratic administration turn that on them, as they did even before a law like that existed during the IRS controversy, the lowest learner controversy, which is more nuanced, obviously, than a lot of people on the right remember, but was still nonprofits being targeted by the government. This is it's a slippery slope no matter what.
So you think they'll pull this out?
I think this is, yes.
Dropsite is a nonprofit.
Yep, I thought.
And it'd be annoying to allow the Secretary of the Treasury just be like, actually, we don't think so. We don't like Dropsite.
Yep. That could absolutely happen, which is why, again, I don't think this ends up in the bill. And another thing, I'm just going to skip ahead here, but D4, this is about AI. So there was a little provision inserted into the bill. Matt Stoller pointed this out. It bans regulation of social media. He also mentions it's AI regulation. And one thing I heard yesterday is that some members might not have even been aware that this was dropped in. I mean, again, we're talking about a 400-page bill, and it's being flagged. But you know, this is one of the more interesting divisions in Trump's Republican Party, is whether or not AI should be sort of unleashed or should be closely monitored because it is an apocalyptic threat to Western civilization. And all of that comes to a head in a question about these regulations going forward. Now, back to the broader problems, this is D2.
Is that gonna make it?
I don't know.
Come on, MAGA. Like,
I genuinely don't know.
Where y'all at?
I would be more confident that the nonprofit one gets cut than that one. Also, taxing university endowments, fantastic. Populist left and right type horseshoe idea that's in the bill. We'll see how much that stuff survives. These colleges and universities have very powerful lobbyists, and they are lobbyisted up. I'm trying to do the mobbed up with lobbyists, but that's the best that I could come up with. D2 is from Representative Chip Roy, Freedom Caucus guy, very much a leader in that space on the policy front. So he's saying there will be enormous pressure to, quote, get in line to support the bill because it does a number of things we support. Regardless of the merits, though, if we object, we will be called grandstanders, and we must comply by influencers and some elected officials. I won't care about the pressure, he says. He asks, does the bill meaningfully reduce the deficit, getting to 1% 1.5 trillion in supposed savings plus the tax policy. It's good, he says, but it still leaves more than $20 trillion in additional debt in 10 years, and most of the quote-unquote cuts are beyond the Trump years, so beyond 3.5 years out, which is a fun way to do the math to get it to work out for you in CBO projections. And actually those Congressional Budget Office projections are something I think Republicans are planning to push back against really hard. Republicans and Democrats both do that. But then he asked, does the bill offer any transformative changes on Medicaid or otherwise? Currently, no. It ignores the policy changes that matter. Meanwhile, Senator Josh Hawley is saying, do not touch Medicaid. It is what, Bannon has made this point many times. Medicaid is what MAGA is surviving off of, basically. Like, this matters to working class, populist MAGA. But Senator Ron Johnson wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal just yesterday, this is D5, saying that it doesn't make enough cuts, sounding exactly the same note as Chip Roy. And this is probably a bill they're planning to get, that they would like to have passed around July. So we are a month and a half out, which may seem like a long time, but trying to get Ron Johnson and Josh Hawley on the Senate side together, and then Chip Roy and Mike Johnson and the centrist Republicans together on the House side when you have such a thin margin, good luck. D6, this is a Politico article from yesterday from one of the
Salt Caucus.
Yeah, so this is Nick LaLota saying, quote, the bill is dead, and absolutely blasting Jason Smith, who's the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. LaLota said, actually this was on Monday, quote, the bill is dead effectively on the floor. The Salt Caucus has been having an absolute meltdown. So the Johnson bill, as of right now, triples.
Well, let's tell people what the salt situation is.
So the state and local tax deduction is a wonky thing that is actually a fascinating glimpse into how the Washington establishment works. They get their way all of the time because they pitch a fit. It's people in blue states, and particularly Republicans, who talk a big game about fiscal responsibility, wanting their constituents to get a deduction from their state and local taxes in high tax states. So those are typically blue states.
Right, so let's say you live in New Jersey and you pay $75,000 a year in state and local taxes. Before Trump's reform back in 2017, you could take that $75,000 that you gave to the state and the local government and count it basically towards your federal tax obligation. And so, obviously, in order to pay that amount of money in state and local taxes, you have to make an awful lot of money. So it applies to like the 1%, like the very top. As you get lower, then it starts hitting more people, the top 2%, 3%, 10%. Right now, the cap is it 30 or is it 10? No,
10.
Right now it's 10.
But in the bill it's 30, which is a tripling of it.
So right now you can get, if you anything over 10,000 that you pay to the state and local government, you can't write that off of your federal taxes. So what Republicans were arguing is that that would push these blue states and these towns to reduce their taxes because they'd be pressured by their constituents.
Yep.
That hasn't really happened.
Yep.
So anyway, so that now they're trying to go back and get a higher exemption.
Yeah, they shouldn't even be getting this tripling of it, but they have the audacity. There was some reporting from like Hill people last night that they had a blow up with Nicole Malliotakis of New York, who has basically said she's okay with the tripling, the $30,000. She said that she's okay with that. That was a compromise number that Johnson landed on. And again,
it's a huge
tripling.
issue in a lot of these congressional districts. It's a huge issue because
they'll get thrown out.
It's thousands of dollars per wealthy household, and people are going to be mad at me when I say wealthy because, like, in a lot of these high cost areas, families making $400,000 a year are like don't feel wealthy.
No,
but then
when
families who make $50,000 a year are like, F you make 10 times what I do.
Exactly, and when you hit a $30,000 deduction, we're not just talking about the people making $400,000.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, if you're unhappy with a $30,000 deduction, you're
doing really good.
Yeah, you're not middle class at that point, no matter how expensive it is to live in these high tax states. So Nicole Malliotakis is okay with the tripling. was prevented from entering a meeting by the people who want that to go higher to $40,000 because they said, quote unquote, she's against us. They didn't want her to go into the meeting with Mike Johnson. So I confirmed that with a source. And that's how brutal that this is getting just over the issue of salt. We're not even getting to the stuff about the baby investment fund or Medicaid, quote unquote, reforms, which will be framed as cuts because in some cases they absolutely will be cuts. They won't just be reforms. They will absolutely be cuts. And Josh Hawley recognizes that in substance and in style, that's sort of a disaster for MAGA. Now, Trump was asked questions about this on Air Force One. Here's D7. This is a clip of Trump talking about the American healthcare system.
I would fight so hard to get a half a point, and I actually had it down a half a point for 1 year, and I was so proud of myself because that never happened before. It was always going up. Drugs only went in one direction. That's up. And now, after studying the industry, it's a very complex industry, but I figured it out, and I said, it's not going to happen. But the Democrats fought very hard to keep the prices of drugs very, very high. They really are to blame for this because they should have done something about it.
Okay, so he says it's a very complex industry, but he thinks he's figured it out. D8, this is him talking about Ozempic. And this is a little off topic, Ryan, but delightful and funny enough that we had to roll it.
A friend of mine who's slightly overweight, to put it mildly, went to a drugstore in London and he was able to get one of the fat shots. I call it the fat shot, the jabs, that you lose weight.
By the way, a lot of people laugh at that. Some people get offended by. I don't get offended by anything.
I'm just glad I didn't use his name. He's actually a very rich guy. He's a very successful guy.
He's glad you didn't use his name.
No, he's very happy.
Oh.
He knows exactly who I was talking about. He called. He said, that was interesting. He said he was very concerned that I might use his name. It might slip. No, he doesn't have to worry. But he went to London and he bought this...
Ozempic, Wegovy, one of those?
I guess, yeah. I'm not sure which one. But he bought one of them, maybe Ozempic.
Okay, we had to include it. The serious, I guess.
But it's relevant to the point.
Right, go ahead.
Yeah. No, that people overseas pay a lot less for pharmaceuticals than we pay here. The framework of Trump's idea is solid. Basically saying to a drug company, if you sell something for X price in another country, you have to sell it for that low price here in the United States. Where he falls on his face is that you can't do this by executive order. Drug companies have lawyers, they'll take it to court, they will win. But you can do it through Congress. Ro Khanna and Bernie Sanders have offered to introduce his idea as legislation.
They could put it in this bill, by the way.
Put it in this bill.
The reconciliation bill.
Hey, and you save a bunch of money then through Medicare and Medicaid, then you don't have to do the cuts. He's lying when he says that Democrats did everything they could to keep drug prices high. For the first time in decades, Democrats during the Biden era were actually taking on big pharma in a serious way. They could have done a lot more. I would have liked to see them do a lot more. But pharma caught a bunch of L's.
Yeah.
And so keep that momentum going. Or is Trump going to do what he did in the first time, just talk a big game, write some executive orders, and then watch them get ripped up by the courts, and then move on, and just tell everyone that you did wonderful things on drug pricing, which is the kind of lie that doesn't land with your base because they buy drugs. They know it. Like you can lie about some things. You can't lie about what it costs to fill your prescriptions because every single day that you're going to the drugstore, you know. So, we'll be nice to Trump and say we'll see if he actually takes it to Congress. What do you think, Willie?
No.
Never mind.
No, I don't
was being
think
nicer
so.
to Trump than you.
I don't think so. Well, I think part of it is that they are continuously trying to make this point about executive power.
Well, this will like make the opposite point because the courts will be like, no, can't do this. You need a law.
Right.
And guess what? We have a whole
Which, by the way,
building.
is correct.
It's this beautiful domed building. It's right down the street.
And he controls it.
It's controlled by Republicans on both sides of it. And there's only two sides. So boom, put it. And you've got a bunch of Democrats saying that they're happy to do it. So just do it.
Well,
You said you're not scared of pharma lobbyists. Just go do it.
The problem is a lot of the people who have to vote on the bill are, so let's tie a bow on all of this.
He's fine to hang out with Al-Qaeda, but drug lobbyists is not going to take that.
They'll take that $10 million bounty off Golani's head. But
by the way, and we didn't make this point in the Syria blog, he's from the Golan Heights. His nom de guerre is like a derivative of that.
Golani, yeah.
And in his deal with Trump, he's just basically handing the Golan Heights to Israel. What an arc.
Yes, it is. So Trump.
The people who said that the CIA was backing this thing the whole time are undefeated so far.
Yep. Trump posted on Truth Social, "When I return from the Middle East, where great things will happen for America, we will work together on any and all outstanding issues, but there shouldn't be many. The bill is all caps great. We have no alternative. We must win. But now with the tremendous drug and pharmaceutical cuts plus massive incoming tariff money, our great big beautiful bill just got much bigger and better." So he's making the direct connection between what we were just talking about, the drug and pharmaceutical cuts, the planned drug and pharmaceutical cuts, and the bill itself, and the tariff war. The golden age of America will soon be upon us. Make America great again. So all that is to say, where Donald Trump is trying to say the bill is great, Chip Roy is already signaling that he is conditioning, and he is conditioning himself, is conditioning his constituents in Texas and other budget hawks to be immune to Trump-like efforts to say this is a great bill, we need to pass it no matter what. In the Chip Roy post, he's talking about how some of these cuts are fantastic. The tax portion of the bill he sees as excellent, but the bill is still irresponsible enough in terms of spending that he doesn't want to get behind it. And by the way, if you are a Chip Roy and you look at the fact that Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency, you have every right to be frustrated with a bill that jams in some of these priorities without making what you see as important generational cuts. DOGE is at 160 billion allegedly in cuts. So it's not making the $2 trillion or $1 trillion in cuts that they saw as something that would be a booster to this tax bill and a booster to the trade war in general, because you wouldn't necessarily need as much revenue coming in from reciprocal tariffs, whatever else. So this is a huge, huge mess for Republicans. Everyone predicted that it would be. It's not a surprise to Mike Johnson, or it's not like they're caught off guard by what a mess this is. But actually sort of untangling this knot for them in the next 6 weeks with such thin margins in Congress, needing to get a Chip Roy on board, Thomas Massie on board, and then the moderate SALT people on board, then needing to get a Ron Johnson on the same page as a Josh Hawley. Obviously, the stakes are really high for them, but holy smokes, Ryan, this is going to be an incredible roller coaster. And as obvious as it sounds that they'll end up getting something done, I'm not sure that that's even the case. I think this is going to be a really bitter, bitter fight.
Or maybe they'll just continue the tax cuts as they are and not do the rest of it. But before we leave, let's just put up D4 one more time, just to underline is how completely crazy this is. So this was D4, where they say, in general, except as provided in paragraph 2, no state or political subdivision thereof may enforce any law or regulation regulating AI models, AI systems, or automated decision systems during the 10-year period beginning on the date of the enactment of this act. That's just completely insane.
Yep, it is.
And people say if you want to know who your ruler is, ask who you're not allowed to criticize. If you want to know who your ruler is, ask who you're not allowed to regulate.
Yeah. Well, this is the type of thing that they drop into the bills. I think it's the same thing with the nonprofit. They drop into these bills when the sausage is being made to then negotiate down from a crazy position.
Well, let's hope.
Yeah. Well, yeah, as long as people flag it and catch this stuff. I guess 400 pages isn't that long of a bill, all things considered.
Yeah,
they get a lot longer than that.
Yeah. Tight narrow, wide margins.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes. Hey, if you liked that video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Breaking Points.
If you want to see the rest of Counterpoints, go to breakingpoints.com to become a premium member and get the full uncut show every morning in your inbox and on Spotify.